I kind of feel like all those questions where people go, why didn't they do this or why don't they do that? Well, they did. Welcome back, everybody. Josh, the RV Nerd, here with Bish's RV. This might be, I think, my personal favorite Ibex I've ever had the chance to see right here. It's a member of their 19 series, and if you're not familiar with the Ibex lineup, they have three kind of brackets or subsets. You have the little horns, which are these 6.5-foot little guys. You have the 19 series that we're looking at, which is a combination of both single and some of these tandem axle models, but they're only 7 foot 4 inches wide. It's a weird sized narrow body. And then you have the 20 series, which is a full 8 foot wide. This is a member of that 19 series, and it's one of their tandem axles, or I would say actually quad wheel, not technically even tandem axle, because they are using what they call their beast mode suspension system with the cool Sasquatch logo. It is a 4-wheel independent Curt off-road suspension system. If you're familiar with our Ember videos, it's the exact same thing they're using here, and I ain't mad at it. I don't criticize them for using it whatsoever. People, you don't realize how vastly important a good suspension is to the long-term longevity of an RV. Imagine dragging this thing down the road without a good suspension. Every time you hit any sort of bump, it just rattle bangs all over the place. By virtue of the fact that it has that better trailing arm suspension, even if you don't plan on doing anything off pavement, off road, whatever, it will just, the RV will last longer because every single nut, bolt, widget, stress, like fastener isn't getting just rattled to death. Now, they are using Azdel on the exterior layer of the walls, the underbelly. It is enclosed. They're using holding tank heaters, and they're doing a little bit different thing with their holding tank gate valves. I'll go through in more detail later. Goodyear Wrangler tires, a banded TPMS, meaning it's built right into the tire, so it's more accurate, and it can provide temperature info. And so many people look at a model like this and go, why don't they just Murphy that? Well, Ibex did. They give you the big bath fan. This thing's good. Now, the thing to remember with this one is it's kind of a 10 pounds of sugar and a 5-pound sack camper. Being only 7 foot 4 inch wide, it gets a little cramped and it feels a little overlappy sometimes, but at the same time, there's a lot of big feature and bang all packed into this sucker right here. First of all, I love that the bottom side of the Murphy bed, they didn't just like leave blank like almost everybody does. They did something with it there. Here's another thing that I think is a major deal compared to last year. I didn't mention it in our early intro here. They are now standard with an inverter. But where most brands are still, who do have a standard inverter, are still doing 1,000 watts, they started with a 2,000 watt inverter. Just bang, start from the factory. That is very cool to me. Now you see USB plugs on both sides of the bed. There are household outlets on both sides of the bed. But there's basically only household outlets on one side of the sofa, which sounds weird until when you put the bed down for sleeper mode and you see where the other set of outlets is located, and then it starts to make sense. The little sky blue, kind of Ibex blue accent light inside those cabinets can be turned off, by the way. And the light that you're seeing up there is not actually an accent light. It's what's bleeding in from outside from the windshield. So I thought that was very interesting. A lot of Murphy beds with any sort of front window, they have, like, you block the Murphy bed, typically. Very few exceptions to that rule. This one still allows some natural light in while maintaining privacy, which I thought was interesting. Or nothing says you have to use it in Murphy mode. You can just leave the bed down the whole time, except when the slide closes. I haven't checked this one in road mode. I don't think that's necessarily going to work. Now, I'm going to cop a squat over here. The TV is mounted up maybe a little high, but I also don't know that they had a much better position put it in. If we're sitting over here, you kind of wish they would have mounted it maybe to the left a little bit, but when you're sitting at the Murphy bed sofa, it starts to make sense, and that TV can pivot around. The thing is, this is a double Dynofa model, and it does include its own free floating table that we'll get to see. But if you don't want to have to bust that sucker out, because again, it is kind of tight quarters, it's nice to just be able to jump right over here to the bar and have a spot to munch there. Now, they didn't have the ability to put power outlets in the sidewalls, and they didn't want to dangle a power cord down from an overhead cabinet. So you have several, like, side of the counter outlets right there, which, I don't know, I think that that'll generally work when you need it. We'll get all the kitchen stuff open, but I do want to cover a couple more details. I will say, I would like a window in the entry door of this. That's just, I'd love a full viewing window with a privacy shade. I personally think that that would look nice. By the way, speaking of looking nice, what is your 2 cents on this decor? Like, obviously, no one's ever going to 1,000% agree, but I'm kind of digging it. Like, it gives me a little bit of those natural rocky dirt vibes, but at the same time, it's not like too light, it's not too dark. It's like Mama Bear. It's just kind of just right in the middle right there. By the way, they don't do a traditional oven, but they do have a convection microwave oven. And down below that is something that very few campers have. In a travel trailer small segment like this, that is a centralized vacuum and even what I call the electric toe kick dustpan. You don't even need to get all the hoses out. It's just kind of easy. Now, your refrigerator. You may see some Ibexes with a 12-volt fridge. That's what we're looking at here today. You might see some Ibexes with a two-way fridge, and that may lead you to believe that that's an optional object, and it is not. The Ibex is built on the eastern side of the country out of Indiana, which is what I'm looking at right now, actually in Indiana. Those have a 12-volt fridge standard, and they have no gas-electric refrigerator two-way swaption. The Ibex is made out west. They have split east-west production. Those are all standard two-way refrigerators. So the fridge that you're looking at in one of these might change. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when we step outside, but that is a non-ducted air conditioner. We're in the smaller, simpler 19 series of Ibex right now. When you step up into the 20 series, which is also a full 8-foot wide, then you will actually pick up centrally ducted air. So there's kind of a little bit of a split divider line within the family in that regard. One other thing I want to mention is it is nice that like all of our ceiling cabin lights are just on one switch, but you can clickety-clack each of those off individually if that concept kind of fits your preference a little bit more. Now, peeling apart the front end of this thing, obviously we have that Murphy sofa up front. You've got that free-floating table I mentioned. Again, you can use that outside if you're so inclined. But this bed, it is a folding bendy bed, but it is an 80-inch mattress, and it is extremely easy to flip up and flip down. I don't want to say flip off because then I'm going to get, I don't know, canceled or something like that, but you get the idea. Now, a full 80-inch long means a big person like me can sleep on it without my feet hanging off the bed. There's also those really nice like headboard side pockets. I didn't see any power outlets in there, but again, the one side you do have a power outlet kind of coming off the side. Now again, that TV can twist and pivot around, and it's under the sink. I kind of wish they hadn't put a shelf there so that you could maybe have like a wastebasket space. And there are drawers, but it's drawers inside of a door. It's very easy to miss. The back corner of this, though, is either, well, it's a bonus closet and it's a pantry, and there's actually a little safe built right in there that I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know that I would use that for my most valuable objects, but then again, I don't know that any RV is a fortress, and if I could help it, I don't think I'd ever keep my most valuable personal objects ever stored in an RV, but that's my 2 cents. Now, someone's going to look at this and they're going to say, oh, why didn't they failed? Why didn't they put in a theater seat? Notice how I left that sofa in the slide flipped up so that you could see what's underneath of it. Because of that big monster suspension package that they have, the wheel wells stick up into the body of the RV. Like you can see how the bottom of that slide actually floats above the floor. It's because it's above the wheel wells. So they're not able to do a floor flush slide. So you can't do a theater seat or a dinette because your head would be up in the ceiling and your feet would be dangling off the floor if they tried to pull something like that off. So that's kind of the why behind the what, in case you were curious. Something else I noticed too, the thermostat on this is digital, not one of those analog dinosaur type things. And by the way, that is a 12-volt television. The power cords and everything, the coax cords are actually in a drawer, so they would plug in over there. That is the only thing. I kind of wish they'd move the TV hookups over so you wouldn't have to see any cables dangling down. That really kind of, I don't fully understand the concept behind that, but I guess I don't have to. So first of all, the space around the toilet worked pretty well for me. I'm a little bit over 6 foot. I'm obviously carrying a little more weight than I should. I'm not the biggest fella by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought I fit in there pretty well, and I am happy to see this. You don't have to upgrade the fan. You're just getting the bigger fan built right in here from the factory. And I think a whole bunch of people are really happy to see that. Now, if you are going to be in the parks, water conservation, for longevity of the use of your RV, less of an issue. But extending your trip, not longevity. That sounds like I'm implying something else. But if you're going to be off grid, this does carry that shower miser system over here in the water, which in the water, I'm an idiot, which is a water reclamation system, basically. So if you want to take a hot shower, what you're going to do is you're going to flip that little lever, and it will the water heater will recycle the water back through the fresh tank. And then once the water is warm, that little blue elbow turns white. It's kind of the opposite of, remember that cold sensing Coors Light can when the Rocky Mountains were blue? You knew it was time to have a drink. Well, it's sort of the opposite of that, but because it's hot instead of cold, I guess. Now it's 6.5 foot tall, so my head did have to be in that skylight, and it is a radius shower because it's not a big floor plan. They had to be a little more space efficient than that. So the thing is, a lot of times you could be bunking your elbows in this thing. If you face toward the corner of the shower or toward the door of the shower, you do have more elbow room there though, but that's not always the ideal solution for everybody. And this is a very pleasant surprise. I'm going to give the road mode on this like an A minus. The only reason I'm not giving it an A plus is just when the sofa and the kitchen counter, when the sofa closes, it gets awful close to the kitchen counter, but you can do the sideways travel trailer two-step and slide through there. And I didn't know how this was going to play out. You can leave the bed down. If you don't want it to be a Murphy bed, it doesn't have to be a Murphy bed. You could slot in any 60 by 80 True Queen mattress of your preference if you're willing to sacrifice the Murphy function, and this floor plan just continues to work. That is a very pleasant surprise. And if you're making a travel stop, a lot of RVs, you don't really have a place to stop and get a bite to eat. You can always use that little elevated counter right there. Not to mention the location of the fridge, kind of behind the bathroom door right now. That's easy to get to. The bathroom's straight in the door. This thing really crushed the road mode travel access portion of this thing here. But I mentioned how you can also use that little table outside the RV. Well, I hauled it out here for you, and here's what I mean. You want to leave it down in coffee table mode, you can, or you could pick it up and put it in like picnic table mode. You don't necessarily have to just use it on the inside of the camper. You know what else this allows you to do very nice? I call it like stealth mode camping, where you could pull in any place, never open the slide. You could do an overnight stay over, maybe for free in some kind of parking lot somewhere. I tell you what, that just bumped this one up on my list a little bit higher. Well, one of the most common questions, because one of the most common vehicles is a half ton, is can my half ton haul it? Just a little bit over 7,500 pounds max weight and under 25 foot tip to tail, tongue to bumper total length and a narrow body. I think most half tons will handle this one. I do feel it's probably just a bit beyond where maybe a mid-size pickup wants to be. The other members of the 19 series that are single axle will probably fit a mid-size pickup better. But just a little reminder here, in case you didn't recall, this is a 7'4" body width. It's an interesting variety of narrow body, so it doesn't tend to stick out too much past your vehicle's tow mirrors, although I do always recommend getting tow extension mirrors just for smart safety factors. Now, the 19 series has, again, non-ducted air and a single propane tank, where the 20 series Ibex family will have ducted air and 2 propane tanks. So there's a little bit of a subdivision there. But generally speaking, the equipment's going to be real same, like battery disconnect up front. It doesn't come with a factory battery, but sometimes factory batteries aren't great and you'd rather get your own. That yellow thing is a relay for the banded TPMS system. So tire pressure monitoring factory standard on this, and it's not a valve stem cap that is typically less accurate and often can't give you tire temperature, whereas this does have that capacity. 4 corner stabilizer jacks. I just because we are flirting on the edge of that territory where you start to run into some single axle stuff that sometimes doesn't have that. I thought I'd go ahead and point that out. And what do you think about the look and the color scheme? It's kind of asymmetrical with the decals, but it's kind of growing on me, or some of our Canadian friends call them decals. Okay, no problem. Maybe I'm the one saying it wrong. I think just different strokes, different pronunciations, different regions, whatevers. Ooh, sorry, I meant to get you a look at this from the other side, but you will get to see here that this does have a full pass-through storage compartment up front, which I think is a very, very handy feature. Gives you a place to keep your like outdoor chairs and your griddle that we're gonna see, and you know, store your hitch when you're done. That's the whole pool cleaner hose kit that comes with the central vacuum system. Although in a camper like this, I don't know how often you're going to need that, since they did still include that little toe kick central vac system on the inside there, the electric dustpan, as it were. They put, I think, about the biggest awning on it they could, so I'm going to give them credit there. Tinted windows that all open for airflow, excellent. Not a camp kitchen, but the fridge is not far from the door. We got an outside cooker situation, so you can keep some of the heat and the extra humidity and moisture from cooking outside. Gas grill cooker hooker right down below. And then we have the beast mode. This is the 4-wheel Curt trailing arm suspension package. And the thing is, I can sit here and talk about this, but folks, towing is believing on this. And I have personally done some test towing with this suspension package on different RVs. It is, for my personal opinion, it's the best thing available out there anywhere remotely to this class. It is a true off-road trailing arm suspension package, 4-wheel independent tire action. And like, if you've ever seen a camera mounted under one of these going over like a set of railroad ties or whatever, it's crazy how much the body of the RV does not get banged around while you're roller quaking down the road. The thing is, it also handles really well, like if you're just going down the highway. It doesn't even have to be like some off-pavement adventure kind of camping. If you just want to do a lot of towing and going, frankly, that's still probably one of the best highway suspensions that you can find out there. It's also vastly more expensive, and they had to really bulk up on the structural aspects of the RV to accomplish that, but they did it. Now, you may have noticed how the underbelly was enclosed down there. There's some things going on that you can't see that are very, not exclusively unique to Ibex, but a little bit different. And unfortunately, all I can really do is a bunch of hand puppet stuff to help you get up to speed on this. So the underbelly's enclosed. The holding tanks have direct heat pads on them. They don't actually direct dump force air into the underbelly, but there's a very good reason for that. Their gate close valves basically are essentially built right onto the tank. They're not put at the end of the water line run where most RVs put them. What that means is that basically there's not a lot of water, there really isn't water being stored in the water line that hasn't made it out to the water fixture, like the shower, yet. Now, that's a major thing, because that means that you're not wasting water that's in those lines, and that means that you don't have to worry about heating water in a cold camp situation in those lines, because the lines aren't full of water. The tanks are. Not to mention you have that shower miser water reclamation system right there. So this can be, depending on what you want to do with it, a respectable kind of boondock, off-grid, off-pavement kind of camper. But they did some things differently with the plumbing that just most people will never know about. And I wanted to at least cover it verbally here for you, so you had maybe I wasn't clear about it. I sometimes suck at explaining things, often, usually. Now, where you can kind of see something a little bit different, if you actually get right over here where your sewer exhaust and everything is, first of all, look how high up. Look at the clearance on that sewer exhaust. That's one of the best I've ever seen on any RV, ever. And I'm a professional looker at our campers, man. That's pretty awesome. Notice too that all you see is just your tank pull handles right there. All your valves, everything are enclosed, protected away from the weather. So handy little feature there. Now they do have a ladder up to the back. It is a fully walkable roof, but take a look up here with a little walk on the wild side. First thing you're going to see is like what looks like a little cargo rack mount. And while you could certainly do that, a lot of people are using those to expand on your solar potential, which is something that these have done much better this year versus last year. Last year was this little 80-watt, kind of not amazing solar package with a little 10-amp controller. Now that's a standard 200-watt panel. Remember, we have a 2,000-watt inverter on these, and you also have a 30-amp controller that you could daisy chain off of and expand. And instead of screwing solar panels down into your roof structure, which the factory does not cover when you do that, you can mount the solar panels on those cargo racks if you want to. So there's a lot of, like, you can look at this and judge a book by its cover, but there's actually a lot of thought going on under the skin that is very, very easy to miss. Something else that's incredibly easy to miss, I've not heard of a manufacturer of a little camper doing something like this before. Instead of a 3/8 roof decking, they're using a 3/4 inch roof decking. That's a 6/8 roof decking. Their roof decking's literally twice as thick as a luxury fifth wheel out there today, so that if you do want to load a heavy cargo item up there, you're not gonna buckle your structure, buddy. And you know, I kept looking at this going, this reminds me of something. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Rockwood had a floor plan called a 2514S that only saw 1 year of production. I loved it. It was one of my favorite mini lights I've ever seen. I never understood why it wasn't more popular. It's very similar to this, so maybe that's why I'm feeling such an attraction to this RV. It's got a couple things, certainly. You know, like I would probably throw a second propane tank on the front of it, but that's stuff that I could handle. The big things that really matter, I feel like they're nailing this one pretty well. Like, I could see myself in a camper like this one. This is sharp, but that's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think. If you'd like to check pricing and availability, make sure you check the links in the video description right there. And when you're ready, we're ready. We don't do hidden dealer fees, we just do everything else. So take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.